All right. Hi, everyone. Julie Hawkins here, the Biz Psychic. It is Monday, January 25th. And the reason I am doing this version or this segment here is because for the last maybe couple of weeks or so, maybe just the last week, I have been hearing, in fact, when the new administration came in, so it's not even quite a week. I have been hearing that they just keep saying prosperity is coming, prosperity is coming. And I'm like, great, I'm loving that. What does that mean? And so we're going to try and dig a little bit deeper into that and get you some details and specifics because depending upon what your uh, criteria is, the stock market looks very uh, prosperous. But if you're not in if you're not in the stock market and you've lost your job because of the pandemic, um, it's not feeling very prosperous. So my friend Marco is here with me, and so I may try to connect in and see what they start me with. But he also has questions to dig a little bit deeper because Marco asked great questions. So we are fortunate. They just said, you are all fortunate. I'm like, okay, we are all fortunate. Why, how, in what way are we all fortunate? Good times, better times are ahead. Okay, but what does that mean? All right. So as we move forward in this new era that we are in, we are going to the negative is going to be minimized, the negative talk, the negative thoughts, the negative situations, and to be replaced with the positive. Now, specifically, what does that mean? What is, wow, I got cats go crazy going on here. Um, is that specifically what that means is that we will make strides with the pandemic, and that is by and large the greatest source of a lot of the financial hardship, as you all know. This is nothing new. What's new is going to be the way in which the prosperity is created. All right, so the new industries, the new products, the new services. It is, and we've said this before, we said this a lot last year for you, a lot of new creativity and novel approaches and novel services are going to be explored and created um, and really grow. So let's see if we can get a little bit more specific. So Marco, whenever you're ready, I don't know if you,
Ready.
I was going to say you don't look very ready, but maybe you are ready. Please go ahead and see if you can dig a little bit deeper and what we can give you to get in a little bit deeper to what's ahead and when it's ahead.
Yes. So prosperity, what comes to mind, Julie, is that it can be sliced in a bunch of different directions, of course. But for me, what's coming up are kind of two levels or two strata. One is that we have, as you know, tens of millions of our fellow Americans who are trying to survive the best they can under extremely difficult situations in terms of not enough money coming in, not enough support, whether their hours have been cut, whether they have no job, and they're having to make really super hard decisions in terms of the little money that they do have.
Yes.
So there's that one stratum, okay, the people who are the no small number of people who are just living at that edge. And then there's the other stratum of people who are less living at the edge, who have some degree of available cash resources to be able to invest. So I think I'd like to ask you to start with the first stratum in terms of what does prosperity mean? What will it mean to those many of our fellow beings who are simply trying their best through very difficult circumstances to stay afloat for themselves and their families?
Yeah. Well, a few things were coming through as you were talking about that. We would like to see them fight. We would like to see them contact their local, state, and representatives and say, We're not doing this anymore. We need you to take care of us and to watch out for us until we can be back on our feet." We know, we know this country will be back on its feet. We know that will happen. In the meantime, we are struggling for food and shelter and warmth. And so to those people, we want you to, for lack of a better word, we want you to be the squeaky wheel and to complain loudly to them. They need to hear that. Otherwise, it's a bureaucracy of red tape and politics that ensue, and you're the ones that pay the price and the penalty. And it's truly, as you will agree, unfair to you. So we'd like you to start there. Write letters, place calls to your state senators and your Congress people, and make your voice heard. This is the time. You now have a sympathetic commander in chief, and he wants to do the right thing for you. And he needs you to scream it to the other people who are not listening. Okay. So that's one aspect of that. When we say prosperity, wow, it's kind of like they just said to me, it's after the Depression and the Depression of 1929, when everything was just so horrible and people were jumping out of windows, and we don't need to, give you the details of that, but lots of things were yeah, just bad. And so we, again, stand sort of on a precipice, and until your voices are loudly sounded, that precipice isn't going to, it's not going to change. You're going to be stuck there for a while. When you do speak up, when you do make noise, we will see packages come, not literally packages, but packages of bills and money that is sent to tide you over from the government. That's one aspect, one strata, we like your word, of prosperity. Nobody ever wants to feel like they aren't heard and aren't worthwhile. And we know it is not your goal to collect unemployment forever. That is just the silliest argument that anybody could put forth. So as we move forward into this new administration, you will see changes on the, we'll call them the periphery. Okay. We haven't quite got to the heart of everything, the heart of the matter, to change the situation for the everyday person who has lost their job due to the pandemic, and or all the challenges that come with that. So that's coming. Short term, we do see things shifting once that the vaccine debacle that was we see this changing once the pandemic is more under control and your vaccinations are distributed and people really can get a hold of what's been going on. And there's less fear and um, less worry about what happens if you get it and how can we go back to work and our children need to go back to school. So this is all coming. We see that change coming around 3 months from now. You're going to start to see a shift in that where we've passed the worst of it and we're up on the upturn on the upside of this now. And then when we talk about prosperity in general, we really see it. I don't know if I can explain this. So I bear with me as I try, because what they're showing me is it's like happy days are here again, and we have passed the worst, and people are starting to go back to work slowly, and children are going to be going back to school, and we are going to start to resume some semblance of normalcy. It is not over. It is not over, but we will start to see it, and that brings us into the summer where where things were good last summer for you. So they'll be better this year. They'll be better this year. Less chaos, uh, more structure, but the structure gives you what you need to feel safe. And when you feel safe, then we can start to see a lot of these areas pick up and return much more to a normal, what we would think of as normalcy. Let's see if there's anything more about that. Hold on. Some of this, what we want to call prosperity, is truly a mindset. Okay. It's not just about money or monetary goods and services. It's really about the mindset of returning to a time that feels more normal. And that in turn makes you feel just more secure and have the ability to move forward and do the things that you would more normally do, like work outside of the home, go to restaurants. Restaurants will begin to open up. There's so much the lifeblood of our civilization, of our culture. So it's not easy though. What they're saying to me is this is really a complex issue. This pandemic is not simple. So we just want you to hear that. All right, we'll let you dig a little bit deeper if you want to, if you think that will help.
So if you look at the election results of November 3rd, as far as the presidency, Joe Biden won somewhere over 80 million votes. Donald Trump won somewhere around 74 million votes.
We thought it was
My question,
72, but we won't quibble.
pardon me?
We thought it was around 72, but we won't quibble.
Well, the figure I've seen at least is 74.
All right, carry on.
What I wanted to ask you is, given the substantial amount of polarization we have in our country, will prosperity mean different things to Biden voters as opposed to those who voted for Donald J. Trump? Will it mean different things to different people depending on kind of where they are on the political spectrum?
Um, Not on the, well, so prosperity in some ways means different things to different people anyway. However, what we want to say is really from its simplest form, we want to say that it is about going back out and getting back to work as we know it. That is what we mean by prosperity. It is not necessarily a dollar amount or um, or an investment dividend. It is about going out and getting back out and getting to work. That is what prosperity is, will mean.
Well, to take perhaps a bit of a skeptical position, I mean, with Biden having been in office now for all of about 5 days, he has said himself explicitly that things are going to get worse before they get better.
Mhm.
How long they're going to be worse before they get better, of course, is difficult to say. There's the fear of these various mutations of the coronavirus
Oh, wait,
that
yeah, hold on 1 second. I'm just going to pause this for a second. Okay,
tell me when.
we're back.
There are these various strains of
Virus.
the virus that we're dealing with in this global pandemic,
Mhm.
and there are reports that are coming out, credible reports, I believe, that these various variations of this particular virus are more contagious and perhaps even more deadly, which is a pretty darn bad combination,
Mhm.
right? So how can one have hope that in the near term, in the next 3 months or so, I think you mentioned that we are going to be able to collectively feel that we are, if not in a more prosperous place, in a better place, at least that we're on the road to be to getting there. It seems to me, again playing the skeptic, that 3 months seems like a pretty short time frame to really feel that we're kind of on the mend, that we're going to do better, that people can come back to work, that life can resume with some type of normalcy, that the age-old sacraments that we have with each other, sharing a meal, as you kind of reference in terms of restaurants, you know,
Yeah.
what leads you to believe that we're going to be within sight of a better land as soon as 3 months?
Well, you'll start to see little glimmers of that. It won't be. It's kind of like when you lose 5 pounds on a diet. Maybe this is just for the people who do this, but you you know you're making progress. But when you lose 10 or 15, and people are like, "Wow, you look really good. What have you been doing?" And you're like, "Oh yeah, I'm making progress." It will be like that. We will make incremental progress globally. It will be incremental progress. By 6 months, it will be more noticeable progress. And it will be to the point where prosperity will be, for some, it may be unemployment. It may be. But remember what we said about it's not necessarily how it comes in, it's a state of mind. It's a feeling of I don't have to worry so much anymore at this moment. So it will be the variations of that. We are going to go back to what we said originally, way back when which was back in May of 2020, which is this virus, this pandemic will take years before what you think of as pre-pandemic is where we're at again. But we will start to see some return to normalcy mid-year of 2021, where it's actually noticeable, where we've stopped the continual death rate from increasing, where we've vaccinated a huge proportion of the population, and we are moving toward a certain type of herd immunity, where we're making incremental steps. That is what you're going to begin to see, and we need to have that for hope. Additionally, you will see new companies emerge. Companies that were doing things in a certain way before are now going to be taking different paths in healthcare, in environmental recovery, in just a new pathway towards an honoring and reclaiming of our environment and our planet. And oddly enough, you're going to see oil companies come on board with this. They've been actually in the works with certain things for probably we'll say the last few years. You're going to see more of that as we make this shift. It's pivot or die, pivot or die. And so they know they're not going to die. They're going to take advantage of that. So don't be surprised when you see oil companies start to use their resources in different ways. You're going to see changes in healthcare. Yeah, a lot of new things on the horizon. Not obviously in the next 6 months, but over the next few years and beyond. So watch for that. So when we talk about prosperity, while it may mean different things for different people, it is that incremental shift and that inkling of hope that we have turned the corner.
So there's this saying, which I'm sure you've heard of. It's a rising tide lifts all boats. And as greater prosperity blooms, which of course we all would like to see, inevitably some boats will be lifted more than others, because that's the nature of the tide. So you've already kind of touched a little bit on differentiating between boats. I wonder if you could flesh that out some more in terms of what particular boats, as in segments of the economy or industries, will be more dramatically or more rapidly lifted as this tide, this prosperous tide, rolls in.
I don't know how specific I can be so this is what they've told me in the past, and this is what they're reinforcing again. So this is what they're sharing with me, that get creative. Whoever you are, whoever you know, whoever you don't, you're going to start to see these people with their bursting creativity and knowledge to create these new companies, these new pathways of energy, these our future. What we would used to think of as very futuristic is going to start to come into being and reality. And as we mentioned, it is a segment that has to do with reclaiming and replanting and rejuvenating the earth. It is a new wave of honoring the earth. This is the only home we all have. And they're saying to me, the US needs to lead the way in this, that you will lead the way, and others will follow suit. So it will be, and it will not just be, so we want to tell you, you're going to see much more types of alternative energy. So solar, wind, you're gonna, somebody somewhere who's been experimenting with this for years and years is going to take these composting piles and the waste and the methane and come up with new creative ways to use them for renewable sources of energy that don't pollute anymore, or take that which is pollution, which is can be methane. That's what they're saying to me, and others, and use it for good instead of just shoving it in the earth and letting it. Okay, I can't see, little guy. So let's see if they can, if there's more about that. So industries we like are the healthcare, the health industry. You're going to see a big change in how we, at least in the US, this is US centric, how we do healthcare. That has got to change. That will change. You're going to see changes in energy consumption and how we create energy. If you want to ask us about certain sectors, we'll tell you.
I want to pick up on healthcare, because over the past years, so many of our fellow Americans, our fellow beings, have been suffering through an epidemic of what others, this is not my phrase, although I think it's very accurate, diseases of despair, high anxiety, depression, alienation, violence, substance abuse, suicide. And I can conclude or observe that the way we as a society, whether it's under Republican presidency or prior to that, a Democratic presidency, and now again we have a Democrat in the White House, that there's something woefully wrong, lacking, that we have this epidemic of people suffering from diseases of despair, which of course has been compounded infinitely, seemingly, by the pandemic and the economic implosion. So what do you see as, you talk about changes in healthcare, what do you see as means that we will be tapping into, new and old and somewhere in between, to help these millions and millions of people, not just in our own country, but across the globe, with this epidemic, this pandemic of diseases of despair?
So we want to tell you that this is a reflection of what is happening to your planet. Really take that in and think about that. When you destroy so casually and callously your environment, your planet, when you rape the land, it is a direct reflection. You may be familiar with as above, so below. It is a direct reflection of what you are doing to your environment. And we say environment, we mean the atmosphere down to the planet and inside the planet. It is really in some ways that simple. And so when you have this new generation of like this young lady, Greta Thunberg, who
Grunberg, yeah.
is an environmental champion, um, and she will continue to lead the way and bring others with her, and you will all begin to then lead the march of let's change our planet and let's reclaim it and let's rejuvenate it and let's give it the joy and love that it deserves. Then you as a people will have that reflection reflected back to you. It is really that simple.
I like that answer, Julie, and at the same time, it's not adequately satisfying for me, and I'll tell you why. Because you're answering on the macro, and I'm down with that. I believe, and I'm on board with that. And at the same time, there's going to be, at a minimum, quite a lag between us getting our collective act together with people like Greta Thunberg and others from the younger generations who will replace us over time. I'm just as much concerned about the countless number of individuals who, again, to fall back on something I said earlier, who are just struggling so day to day with so little and so much stress. And talking about getting our collective act together and taking care of this only planet that we have left. I mean, I've dedicated my adult life to that in my own small way, through renewable energy.
Yeah.
I'm looking for maybe some more specific guidance or insight in terms of healthcare, how we collectively can find better means to be able to care for, to encourage, to help these countless beings who are suffering so much now, day to day, and who are taking antidepressants, anti-anxiety, anti-this, anti-that, big pharma fixes, which oftentimes aren't much of a fix. They're drinking, they're smoking dope, and so forth and so on. I guess I'm asking whether there's anything more kind of concrete right now, down to earth, that we can do, and in terms of caring for each other's spirits. And so many are suffering. So,
Well, so let me be clear about, you're asking what we can do as opposed to what the cause is, correct?
yeah, I mean, the collective cause, we're in this together, of course, and it will take time to right the ship of Mother Earth, so we don't crash off the edge of reality and collapse, and societal collapse, global collapse, environmental collapse. But in the meantime, there are beaucoup people who are suffering individually, who are in places of anxiety, depression, deep despondency, who are abusing substances, who are considering suicide, who are perpetrating violence on people they know, animals they have, and so forth and so on. You know, what can be done in the more near term? Give us some, if possible, some hopeful signs or some suggestions, some guidance about what we can look forward to start alleviating the very personal and real pain of so many individuals right now who are suffering.
Well, our feeling is and will remain that everybody is exactly where they are supposed to be at any given moment in time. And while that will pain you as a sensitive person and others as a sensitive person, we must also remember that this is the path that they co-created for themselves with their higher guides and source. So in terms of what you can do, we want to ask you, because you assume that they want help.
I assume that they would like to suffer less, and nobody can really make much of an argument to me that a being wants to continue to suffer as he or she is, let alone suffer more.
Well, humans are kind of interesting in that way. They become very stuck in a groove,
Mhm.
and it can be really hard to move them out of the groove. And that all comes down, we're going to say it, we've said it before and we'll say it again, it all boils down to fear. It is that
Fear?
fear.
Yeah.
It is it is your primal, we're not going to call it a negative feeling. It is a primal feeling of survival. And it is built into us as humans, built into you as humans. And it, some people will come into this life ready and willing to accept the help, and some will not. And you
Mhm.
may do them a disservice by not honoring their choice.
Mhm.
It would not necessarily be your choice. It wouldn't be my choice. But Julie, I have to honor somebody's choice. I can offer them the help and say, here's what we can do. Can I come along with you on this ride? But we as a people have to honor those levels that we've decided to co-create and to come back into.
Mhm.
And while you think it's suffering, who's
It's
to
all
say?
part of the cosmic karmic lesson plan for each
Yeah.
individual.
What looks like suffering to you may be a relief for them. Kind of fascinating that way.
Yes.
So we're gonna say thank you for your questions. We just wanted to give you some clarity on, on prosperity and what that means as we see it coming in a wave like motion or feeling 6 months from now. And maybe as it gets closer, we'll be able to give you more clarity on what that looks like than we have today. So hopefully this does bring you some hope, though. Brought me some hope. So all right. So I'm just going to say thank you, and we will see you next time. Bye for now.